Good afternoon, everybody. We have many people arriving now. Welcome to this afternoon's masterclass. I'll be popping in people as they arrive. We'll hear some beeping in the background, so just letting you know that that's as more and more people arrive to join us. So welcome to our masterclass. I'm Angela Raspis and I look after marketing and communication for DFKANZ. So just before we get started, a couple of little pieces of housekeeping. Down on the bottom left of your screen, you'll be able to mute yourself so we can't hear all the exciting things that are happening in the background, whether you're at an office or a home office. Great to see faces. If you feel shy, you can also turn off your video, but we love to actually be able to interact with people in the Zoom format rather than the good old webinar format when you could never see a soul, but you do have that option. So what we're here for today is the event about future casting, trying to work out your staffing structure in 6 months' time with this very interesting world that we are operating in at the moment. So we have Wendy Jeffery-Lonnie, who is in charge of HR at our firm in Perth, Gooding Partners, who's going to be taking you through some very interesting background and future casting information to help you try and find your way through. Her job really is to remove that blindfold that you can see of the person on the slide that we chose. So if you've not heard of DFK before, we are actually an organisation that has 14 firms across Australia and New Zealand. Wendy, if you could just pop to the next slide for me, please. Thank you. So we pride ourselves on having local knowledge, like a firm on the ground at many different places across Australia, but we have the national connections of that large association, and we're also a part of a global reach firm, which is 92 countries and 214 firms right across the world. So we have clients who do business across, be they both national and international. We cover all sorts of things from business structures, strategic planning workshops, the good old compliance that you'd be familiar with. And right now, what we are focusing on more than ever is putting together masterclasses that are helping our clients and clients to be, we hope, with some unusual circumstances, hence why this particular topic has come up today. So if you've not heard of us before, welcome to our world. And if you have, we're glad that you are still here. So we just have to give you a wee disclaimer on these masterclasses that obviously the material that we're presenting today is only a summary. It can't be considered comprehensive or relied on, but we do believe it's a great jumping off point for you to be able to get started with this topic. So on the line presenting to you today is Wendy. Wendy, if you can pop to the next slide. So that's the lovely Wendy, who is over in Perth, and she is the director of Gooding Partners Human Resources Department for all things people. So whilst Wendy is presenting to us today, you are most welcome to use the chat box, which is down the bottom of your screen, where you'll be able to ask any questions. I will keep an eye on that and pose them to Wendy. We're also anticipating we'll have some time at the end of the presentation. If you have a specific scenario that you'd really like her input on, you'll also receive a copy of the recording of this presentation and also a set of the slides. And last but not least, we have a handy resource, a summary of the steps and basically the checklist that you need to go through on this topic. So keep an eye on your inbox and that will be coming out to you tomorrow. So I think I've covered everything that I need to. I will now hand over to Wendy and she will talk you through the steps that you can take. Thank you, Wendy.
Fantastic. Thank you, Angela. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I've been told about 30 minutes. I'm notoriously terrible at keeping track of time, so I've actually started with a little stopwatch in front of me so I can whip through the slides we need to and spend some more time on the things that I think are really important. And for me, that's about what your business might look like in 6 months' time. It is a changing world at the moment, and it feels like it's relentlessly changing. It feels like we haven't quite had a break yet to regroup and restock, and I'm hoping over the next 30 minutes, if I can stretch it out that long, that we do have the opportunity for you to take that step and take that breath and really have a think about what you might be planning for your people in the next few weeks, months and years. So really quickly, I'm going to be talking about changes in staffing, and some of the legalities and compliance issues around what you need to be thinking of for any decision that you make around your people. But most importantly, I am going to try and focus on this last section is around your organisational structure. The tool that we'll send out is a little handy checklist that we've put together. And I would really like the opportunity to sort of run through how I think about organisational restructuring 101. And hopefully that'll provide you with a bit of a guide about what you might be able to do in your own business. Just really quickly, already sick of the term new normal, had enough of it already. I'm desperately trying to find a new term, but this is in the reality of what we're at. It's not normal. People are still coming to work. People are not coming to work. People are working from home. People are having their kids being schooled from home. It's a whole lot of changes going on in the workplace, and it's happened really quickly. Normally we would have a lot of planning time and a lot of implementation
Just
time.
leave whatever you don't want in the soup. You can have soup.
Sorry, I can have, I hear someone in the background if you don't mind muting. So the new normal becomes a really important part of how we think and how we need to describe what we're doing at the moment. I will give you a little bit of a warning. Fair Work are continuing to be relentless at the moment. So despite being in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Fair Work have not stopped in terms of pursuing claims, pursuing breaches of the Fair Work Act and the award. And that's why we'll spend a bit of time towards the back end of this presentation in making sure your compliance and the little I's you need to dot and T's you need to cross are looked after. People around here, I noticed when a few of you popped up and you had your image in the background, I can see that you're working from home. Sometimes there's multiple parts of the family working from home. And obviously you've also potentially got kids that are schooling from home. So it is a different world that we're working in, and that comes with a lot of pressure and a lot of change and adaptation that we need to make. It's not the same as how it used to be. Increasingly, there's a broadening of mental health issues. Some of this is about people not being connected with their workmates. Sometimes it's about the fact that they're disconnected with their family and friends. A hug is now faux pas. Even shaking hands, and I'm in Perth, and we haven't had community transmission for weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's still an awkward environment for us to be in. It doesn't matter how many staff you've got, you need to be looking at your own mental health concerns, and you also need to be looking at those around you. I believe the next webinar coming up is focusing primarily on this health and wellbeing angle, so I look forward to listening in on to that one myself. The new organisational profile is where the focus of this presentation will be. One of the things I've really looked at and noticed from clients that have been contacting me recently is they've downed their staff. Someone that was working 4 days a week is now working 2. They had someone that was full-time and they're now working 4 days. We've got restricted hours. There's a big change. And some of them, some of the businesses that I'm dealing with at the moment are saying it actually quite works now. We've become a bit more efficient. We've become a bit more computer savvy. And things are now enabling us to do this in the long term. I no longer need my bookkeeper 4 days a week. I only need them 2. And this was where I guess the launch of this presentation came from, is the workplace that we had back in January is not the workplace that it's going to look like next January. So what can we do, and how can we make sure we're meeting the needs of our business and our clients, but also protecting our staff through this process and protecting our requirements under the legislation. Okay, this is a familiar sight, and I wanted to take a moment just for everyone to take a breath. It's okay to feel overwhelmed, and that's just not about only the lack of toilet paper on the shelves. Businesses have been jolted into action, and for some parts of our country, particularly Victoria, they've been jolted into action twice. So some of you workers may be back in the office or back at location, others aren't at all. Some may never come back to the office. Customers are hurting, there's constant media dialogue. So I'd like to take the opportunity for everyone just to take a deep breath. Let's regroup. And let's, for the next 25 minutes or so, really talk about what you can do and what you can do going forward. So really quickly, I want to talk about some of the things you can and can't do in regards to the staffing issues that you'll come up against. Some of the people who are listening in today may fall under their JobKeeper eligibility. and others do not. Depending on whether you're part of Jobkeeper or not is depending on whether you to some additional compliance requirements or additional clauses within the awards and the Fair Work system, which provide some additional scope and some additional protection for you as a business owner or employer. The 4 that I've got up on the screen: can I change hours? Can I change pay? Can I change conditions? Can I change duties? The answer to all of those is yes, absolutely. But, and the but's a really large one, there needs to be done depending on whether, as I mentioned, whether you're in or not in Jobkeeper. So there's some additional provisions of the award that you need to or may need to consider. Any change to any of these factors that are on the screen must be following the consultation procedures. Both of these consultation procedures tend to be within the awards system. In most cases, they should be in your employment contracts, and in a lot of cases, they'll be within the Fair Work Act. So you can't just unilaterally change things to your people, not tell them about it, and then think it'll be okay. The changes that will occur need to have some consultation. You need to be talking to people about what you're thinking and the impact that it might have on them. For some of our staff, things might be able to be changed, or some of these areas, things might be able to be changed with or without their agreement. But in most cases, you'll need some sort of agreement with them to make that happen. Things like changes to duties and changes to hours, you can generally do, provided that you're meeting consultation requirements and you're meeting some length of time. And again, your awards, your employment contracts, or the Fair Work Act may stipulate exactly how much time that is. The one thing in regards to pay that I would have a think about is, even under Jobkeeper, you can't unilaterally reduce someone's salary ever. Okay, that's an ever. So, except with their agreement, except with notice, except going through the consultation process. So, Jobkeeper, you can reduce someone's hours, but they remain the same. You may choose to get rid of someone's bonus or reduce someone's entitlement to bonuses. Again, with consultation, it becomes a really important part of what you can or can't do. So I'm never going to say you can't change any of these, but I do have a pretty big but next to it. And it's really important that you consider who it's impacting and what it's doing. Again, unilateral decisions. Let's move all our staff to 4 days a week. Let's move all our staff to part-time. Let's have all our casuals changed to part-time, or all those. If you're talking about all and everyone all at once, I would have a really good think about what that means and why you're making those suggestions. Just because it's equal doesn't mean it's fair. And the Fair Work Act has been put in place to make sure that the decisions we make as business owners and managers have a principle of fairness around it, not about just making everything the same. So I would love to talk about that for days and days and days and answer particular questions and issues you have. If something that you are wanting to understand about the information I've just talked about on this slide, please pop it in the question tab and we'll try and address it towards the end. Okay, just in terms of no rest for the employers, I've got a little media release here, and I'm hoping that it's going to pop up on screen quite nicely. If it doesn't, we might need to click on and then go back to it. And I'm hoping that everyone can still see this screen. But what we've got here is from the Fair Work Ombudsman. They've got a media release page, and that media release page is relentless at the moment. So every day, so yesterday, today, the day before, 2 days ago, 3 days before that, there's been case after case in front of the Fair Work courts, and I'm just going to go back to make sure I am sharing that screen. Angela, if you don't mind jumping on, just making sure.
Yeah, we could see the press release, and I'll make sure that we send that link out when we send the slides and everything. So now we just need to find your PowerPoint presentation again.
I'll just go back. This is what I do when I try and be technical. And
there we go. You're fine.
We can see it. Thank you for bearing with me. But I wanted to make the point that there's no rest for employers at the moment. COVID-19 is not a reason to not follow your compliance requirements when it comes to your employees. So they're continuing to pursue items in the case, in the courts. They're continuing to raise issues for mediation through Fair Work. So thinking that you might have the excuse that, you know, business has gone crazy, business has gone pear-shaped, I'm sitting in the CBD in Melbourne and there's no one around, I can get away with this sort of stuff, is just not going to cut it. Okay, really quickly, in regards to compliance, again, I won't spend huge amounts of time on this, but we can come back to it if we've got some time at the end with some question time. Please know your award. Even if you pay above award wages, even if your staff are on a contract, even if they're on a really high annualised salary, generally across Australia, they will be underpinned by some sort of industrial instrument or award. So please check and know what that is. It will be important if you try and make changes that are just not acceptable within your award, and it will become an issue down the track. Document everything. This is really important at the moment, particularly around the context of the environment that we're living in. So if you're making decisions because of the situations you're facing due to the pandemic, and you are looking to stand down staff, you're looking to increase staff numbers, you're looking to change hours, you're looking to change position descriptions, document your decision-making process. I'm not going to say that's going to help you, but it may provide some context. Generally, the things that are happening now won't end up in front of 4 seconds time. It's very hard to remember what I did last Tuesday, let alone the decisions that I made about the business. So document it, make sure you've got a bit of a running commentary about why you made the decisions that you did. Even if they were, you know, found out later to be incorrect, at least you've got some guidance about why you came to that conclusion that may mitigate any risk and an issue down the track. Keep an eye on the Jobkeeper provisions. They are changing all the time. 2.1 Jobkeeper legislation is just about to come out. We've got snippets in the media. We haven't got the full piece of legislation yet. So there is going to be some changes to our eligibility. Directions to take annual leave. Again, under Jobkeeper provisions, there's some increased entitlement or ability for employers to require staff to take annual leave. But again, there's restrictions about that. And if you are not on Jobkeeper, then you'll default back to the provisions under standards. So there's things you need to look at and things you need to check off before, again, you unilaterally. Directions to attend work. Certainly with a lot of our casual workers who were long-term casuals that were getting eligibility to Jobkeeper, businesses that were ringing me constantly saying, I'm trying to get these casuals to come into work and they're not going to because they know they're going to get Jobkeeper anyway. So there is some provisions within the Fair Work Commission and certainly within the legislation to make directions about people attending work. That said, there's also going to be a range of disputes that end up with that. So again, I've got some guidance towards the end of the presentation about what we should be doing in this space. But anything that you're going to do to require someone to change something, do something different, attend work, not attend work, change their hours, all those types of things, potentially will end in a dispute. So it's about doing the planning, doing the documentation and protecting yourself from the get-go. Really quickly, there's been some paid pandemic leave that's recently come into the legislation. This was specifically introduced to help with those workers that weren't eligible for Jobkeeper, that were working, so they couldn't get Job Seeker, and they were required to either quarantine or self-isolate, but weren't doing so because if they didn't work, they didn't get paid. They might not have had any annual leave entitlements. They might have not had any sick leave entitlements. So the paid pandemic leave is really, it's quite narrow focus at the moment. But what it is looking for people who are required to quarantine or they're forced to self-isolate. They may not themselves have coronavirus, but they may have been in a situation where they live with a family member, for example, that does. It must be mandated by the health department. It can't be someone that self-diagnoses. They can't ring in and say, oh, hi, I'm not feeling very well. I think I might have coronavirus, so I'm going to take my paid leave. That's not the way that the legislation works. They also must have no other form of income. So someone can't be on Jobkeeper and also get paid pandemic leave. So it's a pretty narrow scope at the moment, but certainly for anyone who is listening in today that does have a staff member not under JobKeeper, doesn't have any leave, and they follow these requirements, may be eligible for that paid pandemic leave. Really quickly as well, I just want to talk really quickly about work health and safety compliance. Most businesses, certainly in Victoria and New South Wales, need to have a COVID-19 safe business plan. They need to have it in place. It's recommended for most other businesses as well, that you're following the health requirements from the government. You also need to look at your staff level comfort. So some of your staff will be in the office and they may be a bit nervous about catching public transport. They may be a bit nervous about attending the office and not being socially distanced from their colleagues. They may work in a retail space and you have to think about how that's going to run based on the COVID safe requirements, the social distancing laws, and whatever phase your different state is in at the moment. The other thing to consider when you're putting together your compliance around, particularly around COVID-19, is what your customers are okay with. I've certainly seen some businesses that have almost gone so far over the top in terms of making sure no one touches anything and no one can do anything, that it actually makes the shopping experience not that great. So we need to find that balance between what your customers are okay with, what the regulations of the health department in your state is stating, and also what your staff are comfortable with. Second to that, so once you've sort of looked at those three angles, second to that, you need to have a think about your safe workplace, and this will include working from home. So if you've got staff that are working from home, you need to make sure that you've at least got some sort of checklist or some sort of way of understanding how and where they're working at home, whether they've got a proper desk set up, whether they've got the screens and the technology that they need. If they're homeschooling kids at the same time, how is that going to work? There's a lot of things that traditionally we'd just do within the workplace and we'd sort of be in control of it because we'd see it. With your staff dispersed, that's certainly not going to be the case. And we need to put another level of protection, another level to understand where the risks might be, and again, where they might be mitigated if needed to be. Okay, so JobKeeper has enabled me to keep my staff employed. So that's certainly a group of clients that I'm dealing with at the moment. They have continued to have their staff working, continue to have them working in the office very productively, continuing to service their clients. On the other end, we've got subsidised a sinking ship. So there are zombie companies out there that are effectively getting JobKeeper, passing on JobKeeper, but there's no intention at all of returning to the workplace. And truth be told, I've got everything in between as well. So JobKeeper has been great for continuing to have businesses ticking along. I think JobKeeper 2.1 will certainly start to address this lower end of the scale, and making sure we're dealing with actual viable businesses going forward. Again, in terms of eligibility for 2.1, we've got currently eligible, yes or no. Can I apply again? Yes or no. I'm no longer eligible. Can I try? I might not have been eligible for the first round, but I might actually be eligible for this round, or I wasn't eligible for the first and it's still not eligible for the second. So when you're going through your decision tree about what you're doing with your people going forward, JobKeeper will have to play a part in terms of your cash flow and your forward planning projections along the way. The other thing to think about is what your future business looks like. So can I carry on is a question that you definitely need to be asking yourself. Some businesses, they'll continue. Others will continue to a degree, or they may need to, or have already changed their focus. We've seen the gin distilleries turn into, developing sanitisers. We've seen online and click and collect go through the roof in terms of how people have changed their online presence, changed their delivery of dealings with their customers. A lot of the advertising I'm hearing at the moment is around we're still in business and we can still do this for you, but we've added another level, so there's no contact, and it's contact-free delivery and contact-free trades and all those types of things. A very good friend of mine is a artist. She's a painter, and she's gone in to put in a lot of her painting on customised face masks. So she's got a little product line that she's helping promote as well. So businesses are changing. The service lines that they were doing incredibly well in January may not be service lines they're doing this next January coming. So you've got to have a think about what your future business looks like. If you can't trade at the moment, and if you're unlikely to trade going forward, there's a huge amount of other decisions that need to be made in terms of your business and what that future business looks like for you, and you know, the people that are part of your business with you. So really quickly, I want to talk about your future business. What does the new workplace look like? These are the questions that you need to, post this presentation, be asking yourself. What's best for my productivity? Do I need my workers here in the office? Can I have my workers here in the office? Do I need them to work from home? The way that I was structuring my work isn't going to be like that going forward. How do I get the most out of my people in a disconnected, disengaged in some instances, workplace? From a business perspective, you also need to look at your projected revenue. The DFK firms around Australia and New Zealand, I can absolutely put my hand on my heart and say they do this really well. Talk to your accountant, talk to your business advisor. You need to be looking at what your revenue looks like over the next 6, 12, 2 years. Looking at your projected cash flow. As I mentioned, some of you may be on Jobkeeper, some of you may not. Some of you may be on it at the moment, but post 28th of September will not be. Others were not on it and then may be eligible. So it's really important that you sort of start to think about what are your staff costs, what are your fixed costs, what are those fluid costs? Can I go and talk to my bank again? Can I go and talk to the person who's supplying me with product or those types of things, and work out what my cash flow is going to look like over the coming 6, 12 months, 2 years. Fixed costs we mentioned, and your staffing costs as well. Once you've had a look at that whole future business, I then like to supplement that with your people. Okay, I'm obviously in a human resource capacity. Staffing and people is where I draw a lot of things from. So one of the questions I have for you, you have a great worker, they're awesome, they're the best worker ever, but their job no longer exists. Do you keep them? Next question, you have a business, you have a function in your business that is business critical. You need this person, you need this function, you need this thing to happen. The employee holding that role is not business critical. Do you keep them? I can't answer these for you, but they're questions that you need to have a look at in terms of your flow and what you're going to do. Who drives your business decisions? As much as it breaks my heart, but I do need to pull my heart out of my chest and pop it on the desk for a bit and make a business decision about my structure and the people who are holding the roles within it. I can't make business decisions, particularly in this time, when I'm focusing on the people that might be impacted. As hard as that be, you might have loyal employees that have been with you forever and you want to do the right thing by them. I get that, I agree with it wholeheartedly. However, it's really important that your business decisions are being made with business head, and then you pop your heart back in and coast and coach and support and deal with your people on the side. It's a really hard thing to do, and particularly with small businesses, really critical. So really quick step-by-step guide to 101 for organisational planning. There's a whole heap of other functions in here, but I am really conscious of my time at the moment. So first things first is to get your organisational structure and take out the names. Okay, really important you do this because the names will influence your decision, and I don't want that to happen at this stage. Look at the functions, look at what's happening in your business, go back to those future planning questions. What does my business look like in 6 months? What are my service lines? What are my deliveries going to be? Who am I targeting in terms of my customers? Then look at what's no longer needed and look at the gaps. That will really quickly identify what functions you need to focus on, what functions you potentially need to bring in or recruit for, and what functions you need to remove from the organisation. Consider full-time, part-time, is it project work, is it casual work, how are the structuring? Hours have changed, hours will continue to change. Making sure you're looking at, just because it was a full-time person doing this full-time role, is it still needing to be full-time? Could it be part-time? Could it be flexible? How else am I going to run this role? Once you've sort of worked through all that plan, you then want to rebuild your organisational chart. That may fall out to be the same jobs. It may fall out to be slightly morphed jobs. So 2 different position descriptions coming together as one. Re-enter names if you can. In some instances, there'll be staff members that are sitting to the side of the chart because they don't properly fit in one of these new roles. Then you can review and then you can make your decisions. Feels really clinical, but this would be the basis. If you turn around then and say, nah, that awesome person, they're the go-getter, they're the one that I need going forward, you need to understand what the impact's going to be on what your business and your new organisational chart looks like. Once all that's done, and that process is not a quick one, but once all that's done, then we need to start to communicate. If you're scared, if you're unsure, if you're receiving conflicting information through media reports and health reports and Jobkeeper information and Fair Work information, if you're worried about how much work you can give to your staff, if you're worried about taking work off them, if you're concerned about letting your staff down, if you're sick, your family's sick, if you're worried about getting sick, chances are your employees are too. It's time to talk to them. It's everywhere at the moment. The best thing you can do as a business owner is to be constantly communicating with your staff, checking in on them, talking to them about what the future looks of the business, getting their involvement, getting their collaboration. They may actually have some really fantastic ideas along the way. Don't lose that part for you. As I mentioned right from, I think, the very first slide we talked about was document well. So everything you must do must occur with consultation and follow due process. Check your systems, make sure you're consulting and collaborating with your staff and communicating with them, absolutely. Look at the intent behind what you want to do. Then look at the legislation, then look at the contracts that you have, then look at the award and determine what needs to happen from there. From there, look at document your decision-making process. I came to this decision because our business was going nowhere and we had to make significant changes for our customers. This is how this decision started and this is why I went down this path. Really important that you document that, get some context behind it. Again, if anything does end up in the Fair Work Commission down the track, if there is a dispute between your worker, it may not be heard for 6 months' time. So you need to make sure you understand that now. What the Fair Work Commissioner is saying, I think if you've listened into one of my slides before, you've probably seen this one before, but this is their, this is what the Fair Work Commissioner says for most instances where things end up in front of the Fair Work Commission. If you're running a business, it's your responsibility to ensure your workplace obligations before you hire or fire any of your employees. I would now extend that to change their pay and conditions, change their hours, change their terms, change their duties. Anything you're doing, you need to understand your workplace obligations. I cannot stress that enough. The shortcut is, in my instant, always to take the long way. Do the hard work, do it consistently. Don't waste your time on lawyers. Don't waste your time paying out money for things that you've just inadvertently done wrong. Spend the time at the start. Talk to the people that you need to talk with. You know, get your trusted advisors on the phone. Get me on the phone. Anyone you need to, talk with the people that know your business and can help you out and provide you with a bit of a guide along the way. Just really quickly, very conscious of time, sorry Angela, key takeaways: communicate more, not less. Okay, absolutely essential that you're talking with your staff more than you ever have before. Keep engaged with your people, particularly those ones that are working from home or not working at all and you've had to stand them down. Keep communicating with them, telling them what the business is doing, telling them what you're looking for, telling them what the prospects are. Consider what your business will look like when we come out the other side. So look forward to last January versus this January. Think about some times. What is the 19th of August going to look like next year? And start to work and plan towards that. Check and then check again. whether you can do what you plan to do. So as I mentioned, check your awards, check your contracts, check the Fair Work. The Fair Work website is fantastic, amount of resources on there. Please use that and please look at it as much as you possibly can. Questions? Angela, do you want to, can I hook you back on if there's anything come through in the question box?
Yeah, I'm just looking down the chat box. There's no questions in there. I could see lots of people furiously writing those, so I think they've taken lots of notes.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity now. If you have a specific question that you would like to ask Wendy, you are able to unmute yourself. So I'm just looking up and down to see if anyone is unmuting. And what will also happen, guys, is that you may think of a question that you want to ask. So please don't hesitate to reply to the email that we send out, because I'll make sure that that gets to Wendy. So no, it looks like we're okay here. So let me just see. I've got a new little piece of software here. Here we go. I'm launching a poll, people. This is the first time I've tried to do this on this software. So there is a very quick poll you should be able to see on your screen, saying on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is not at all useful and 5 is very useful. If you could give us a rank for your experience in the masterclass today, that would be really helpful, because then we know that we are on the right track or needing to do some more work. And whilst I've still got you on the line, or first and foremost, thank you, Wendy, for taking us through all of those insights that you don't normally get access to in such a focused way. So that was wonderful. So thank you for that. And to let you guys know that we will be sending out the replay. So you'll have a list of the slides. You will also have a link to that press release that Wendy shared with us, and also the handy resource, the checklist for things for you to go through when you are attempting to deal with this future casting idea. Okay, we've got most of the votes. I'll just end the poll. Thank you. And I also wanted to point out, as Wendy made a quick reference to, we do have another webinar running next Wednesday. I'll put the link in the email as well. With our philosophy at the moment of looking upon taking care of businesses as a whole, not just focusing on the compliance and business advisory issues, hence why we did HR today. Next week's masterclass is all about mental health first aid. So for yourself, but also very much for your staff. Our guest speaker is able to help you going through what they call the green, orange and red light system as to what to spot, whether people are actually in the office with you or working virtually, when you need to be aware that you perhaps will need to extend care. Incredibly important in this stressful time that we're experiencing at the moment. And there's also a whole lot of replays on the DFKANZ.com website about learning from home, about post-immune care. We had a lovely naturopath talk to us about that, about business re-emergence marketing. There's a whole lot of resources that will be very useful. You can watch them straight on the website, so I encourage you to have a look there. So as I said, thank you for spending your time here with us. Any questions, please feel free to reply to the email that we will send out, and we will keep in touch with you going forward with other masterclasses that we think will be helpful and extend that invitation. So thanks for spending your time with us, and we will talk again real soon. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.